Okay, so thank you everybody and welcome to our webinar on setting up business in the UAE. So whether you're exploring expansion, launching your first startup, or just curious about doing business in the UAE, you are certainly in the right place. So we've designed this session to be really practical and clear, and we'll just go on to a little introduction about the two of us. So I'm Emma, Client Solutions Director. So I have supported thousands of companies to both scale locally and to expand globally. And one thing that I have seen time and time again is how critical it is to get that right setup from day one. So whether it is choosing the right structure, understanding local sort of requirements, or just sort of navigating like cultural and talent dynamics, my job is always to make sure that that process is as smooth and strategic as possible. So I'm joined by Harry.
Hello, my name's Harry Crusher. I've been in Dubai for coming up 4 years now. I've been in this industry since the day I came here. I've probably established over 1,000 companies now. So yeah, it's certainly growing more and more as we speak.
Perfect. So you've got our contact details, which do show up again on the last slide. But if we just sort of deep dive into it then. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is a number of different areas. So why the UAE is a global growth hub. We're going to touch on this sort of the free zones versus mainland. We're going to talk about licensing, timelines, and sort of common pitfalls that we often see. We're going to go through HR and payroll compliance, and of course talking about that sort of cultural insights as well, about building effective teams. We will touch on visa, residency options, and then we're going to go through a few sort of common Q&As that we often find, and then we'll talk briefly about how myself and Harry can support you. Okay, so at Briars we are seeing a rapid growth, and so many different inquiries and about expanding to the UAE, and that is for so many different reasons. I'm assuming you sort of see the same, Harry, at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah. It's even more than ever, especially the European countries is more than ever.
Yeah, and I think just thinking about the fact that there's there's like 200 plus new international companies setting up each month. That is like significantly grown, hasn't it, over the recent years?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And being that kind of strategic location as to where the UAE is placed, I mean, I'm sure that sort of has such a big part to play in it as well.
Of course, everywhere's just so close.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so if we go down to recent changes and trends that we're seeing at the moment, on the next slide, we are, given that we are obviously seeing such an increase in businesses setting up the UAE, what are those sort of recent changes that you're seeing, Harry?
I mean, obviously, it's from my standpoint, a lot from, say, UK standpoint, politically is pushing a lot of wealthy people out of the countries, across Europe as well, to be fair, but people just see this place. It just doesn't seem to stop growing, which is what's drawing so many more people here. From even as an example, Ras Al Khaimah, bringing in the casino, the new Palm being built that's 2-3 times the size of the iconic Palm Jumeirah. The place just is growing more and more. It's bringing more and more talent. It's getting more and more competitive for sure. And it's just drawing everybody.
Yeah, I bet. And that introduction to sort of corporation tax, I suppose that's such a big topic, isn't it? At the moment, we find that so much. What is it? 100%. Why do I have to start paying it? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, obviously, income tax is 0, which is obviously great. It's all relevant, but the introduction of corporate tax, it only works on the profits above $100,000 per year, and it's still so low. It's still so low at 9%. Compared to European, Asian countries, and America, certainly, billing out of this country saves you a hell of a lot of money in corporation tax.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we move into the sort of the free zones and versus
Hmm.
mainland,
Yeah,
this tends to be one of the sort of the biggest and the
it
first
does.
questions from clients as they're
Yeah,
sort of just thinking about expanding, just sort of taking that first step into the UAE.
absolutely.
And when they've heard a lot about free zones,
Hmm.
this tends to be that sort of huge big question. So
Absolutely.
maybe if you could just sort of touch on those sort of highlights, that'd be
Of
helpful.
course. Yeah, I mean, so look, there are over 56 free zones across the UAE. It's incredibly difficult to pinpoint one that specifically suits you. Some free zones will have specific activities that they relate to, but in the grand scheme of things, most of the free zones actually have the same activity list. Um, Obviously, there it states 100% foreign ownership. It's the same in the mainland, depending on activities. Tax benefits, not so much anymore, but they are still there. You do get small tax reliefs, etc., if you don't earn a specific amount of money in net profit. And then exactly there, ideal for service. So free zones are designed to work on a business to business basis, whereas the mainland is for business to business and business to consumer. Free zones are also a little bit more price sensitive in terms of the setup process, and when it comes to the process itself, you don't have to physically be here for the majority of it in a free zone.
Yeah.
Whereas in the mainland, you do need to be physically present. So it's something that you need to take into consideration. Again, mainland is for me obviously the setup that most people want and need.
Okay.
Free zones are for realistically billing outside of the country.
Yeah. And do you
Um,
find, because the free zones are so specific to kind of industries,
mhm.
the industry of the client, mainland have the same rules behind that, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, mainland, and that's the thing with mainland. They can work with everybody and anybody, whereas the free zones are specific. So again, the free zones are on the business to business basis, and mainland just have free reign on who they work with. Again, also there obviously. So if you have a free zone entity and you're looking for government contracts, it's not possible,
Yeah.
and hence the mainland is generally speaking the setup for everybody. Again, depending on requirements.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay.
So set up timelines. So in a free zone, there are 5 or 6 steps. So we always start with sort of a pre-approval to make sure that the client is, I don't really know how to say this without being offensive, is hasn't done anything wrong, I'll say.
Yeah.
It's a pre-background check that we do for every single client.
Okay.
And then we always apply for the business license first, which normally takes 3 to 5 working days. We then apply for what we call the immigration card, which acts as 2 things. It acts as the incorporation card of your company, and it also is what allows you to have visas on your business. We then get what we call the lease agreement, which is just a virtual office. So this is something with the free zones that you need to consider. You won't have a physical space. It's a virtual office. So you can work remotely from anywhere. This is a 24-hour thing. We then apply for an entry permit, depending on whether the client is inside the country or not. So if they are inside the country, there is something that we also call a change of status, which means we are moving you from a tourist across to a resident. So as soon as you have entered the country, or if you're already inside the country, as soon as we have this permit, we then go for a medical test, which is they will take a small portion of blood. They'll do an X-ray of your chest to make sure that you have no underlying health issues. As soon as the medical test has been approved, we then go for biometrics, which is a fingerprint record for police. And as soon as that's also approved, we then get your physical Emirates ID card. And this is literally the key to the UAE. It
Okay.
allows you to open business bank accounts, allows you to open personal bank accounts.
Yeah.
It allows you to move into new apartments or villas, residentially. It allows you to take spaces commercially as well. But honestly, the Emirates ID is the key to you being able to do things in the UAE.
Okay. And
When it
actually,
comes to
when you
the
think
mainland side, sorry, go on.
no, no,
Sorry.
no, sorry, Howard, keep going.
So when it comes to the mainland side of things, obviously in the free zone, I only need somebody physically present here for the last 20% of the process.
Yeah.
Whereas
Okay.
in the mainland, I need you here probably halfway. I need you here for around 50%, because physical signatures are needed when it comes to a mainland company. And when it comes to the mainland, you either have to take a physical space, and when you take that physical space, you need to consider in the cost 5% of the rent of annual space is added onto the business license cost. So there are other ways. The second option is you pay for a virtual office. Again, it's activity dependent. Some activities do need a virtual office where it is inspected, for example. But there are ways to do everything. So yeah, the mainland, it's exactly the same process as the free zone. There's just physical signatures needed instead of everything being able to be done virtually, basically.
Gosh, and I think it's such a, like, the key message really there is like there is so much involved in it, and it actually feels very complex. So
Absolutely.
to go through that process, you need to have the right advice to be able to make
100%.
sure that you are compliant at every stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay. Thank you. So then, thinking about sort of setting up a company and the essentials
Hmm.
that are required, we all know that setting up any new company in any new jurisdiction is sort of really
Hmm.
daunting and can be fairly
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah.
And it's so important to understand those timelines. Just you touching on those
Hmm.
elements, just goes to show how much is involved in that sort of timeline, and also
Absolutely.
things that can come up that can also affect it.
Yeah.
So just you talking about that sort of legal structure, whether it's free
Hmm.
zone and mainland, it's got its
Yeah.
one kind of nuance, but then
Exactly.
even just thinking about submitting all those documents, and I'm assuming from once they are submitted, you can't always guarantee how quickly they're going to come back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing with sort of what we do in this industry. Generally speaking, once we've submitted, it's genuinely completely out of our hands.
Yeah.
But in the grand scheme of things, we have amazing relationships with the jurisdictions, with immigration. So it's not something that we can't probe. But
No.
in the grand scheme of things, that they will do things at their own timeline.
Yes. Yeah. And then I'm sort of from when we're thinking just about setting up the company itself,
Hmm.
once you have the company set up, and then and we'll go through that sort of the immigration pieces shortly in the visas, but
Yeah.
you've also got additional things to think about, just adding in kind of setting up global benefits, for example, making sure the benefits are in place for those
Yeah.
employees, and making sure the payroll and everything, from an HR perspective, making sure everything's in place to allow the workers and the employees to just start from day one.
Yeah, 100%. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And as just to veer off a little bit, as an example, in the mainland, if there's more than one business partner, you can only apply for one visa at a time. So
Okay.
it delays everything. So it's all about planning. Everything is
Yeah,
down to
it's down
planning.
to planning. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And it's amazing how many times you've seen companies try and do it themselves and not plan it, and then suddenly,
Yeah.
there's a reason for why they needed to set up, a week later, and
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen in a week.
Exactly.
Um,
And it's exactly why people like me exist here.
yeah,
It's
absolutely,
you know.
absolutely. Okay, so then sort of moving on from those sort of setting up essentials, moving down to more sort of business operations and requirements.
Mhm.
Obviously, so the bank account is obviously a big
Well,
thing.
yeah,
You
it's a
need to
huge thing.
have bank account in UAE.
Absolutely. Yeah. So normally, it's essential to do it straight away. Some people do leave it a little bit longer, but then because the license has been active for so long, the banks then ask questions as to why haven't you already got a bank account? So it's essential to do it straight away. There are so many options. There are a couple of digital banks now available that don't require any paid up capital. Which is great for the startup side of things.
Yeah,
Minimal documents. It's generally speaking, it's a 10 working day process for the digital banks.
yeah,
And then they have a very low sort of monthly fee as well. And then we work with sort of 5 or 6 of the high street banks. They require the paid up capital. Generally speaking, it sort of starts from the 100,000 dirham mark. that's just to sort of, basically, when it comes to the digital banks, all you get to start with is a debit card and a checkbook. Once you start showing healthy transactions, plenty of transactions, 6 to 12 months down the line, that's when you can sort of apply for a business loan, etc. Whereas because the traditional banks require that paid up capital straight away, it's showing that you have the money behind you to run this business. So then they will offer you business credit and things like that. So that's why the paid up capital is required for the high street banks.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think from a compliance perspective, making sure that you've got the right sort of bookkeeping support,
Exactly.
ensuring the preparation and filing of sort of statutory, sort of the annual accounts and the
Yeah.
tax return, for example, the audit,
Yeah.
and of course, like registering for VAT and doing that side of things when required and necessary. Again,
Exactly.
all just comes part of those, the setting up process, doesn't it? So
Yeah.
making sure you've got the right experts, the right team to support you from day one, to make
Exactly.
sure that you can just sort of them as a business can just focus on the growth of their company, and they
Yeah.
don't have to take on any of that headache, any of that compliance headache.
Exactly. And with the digital banks, it can be done remotely as well. So like if you were an individual just to start up, you wanted to start a free zone company because you were billing outside of the UAE, for example, you could literally fly in. I would need you here physically present for maybe one working week. We'd get your visa side of things done. As soon as you have your physical Emirates ID card, we can then open the digital banks remotely. And so then your bank account will be open. So then you'll be fully up and running from start to finish, I would say between 4 and 6 weeks. Whereas the mainland, it's then dependent on you and when you can be in Dubai, because then the high street banks, again, a physical signature is required. And then because of the compliance behind the high street banks, sometimes it can take 4 weeks just for the bank account to be opened. So we always scoot back to planning everything.
That's it.
And being able to sort of stick to a timeline.
And I suppose, it's kind of almost back sort of planning from the latest it's going to be done, and then like sort of almost planning backwards, isn't it? Yeah. No, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. Obviously, we can get things done sooner, great, but I would always overestimate, let's say.
No, I fully understand. Okay, fantastic. So now that we've sort of talked about the sort of the legal and the operational sort of aspects of setting up your business, let's sort of shifting gears slightly to kind of the bit that sometimes gets overlooked, I suppose, but obviously so essential in building a business, is that kind of really understanding the culture and the talent landscape. It's not thinking about not just about it's sort of where you register, but it's also about who you hire as well, and how they're managed, and how you sort of build trust in that sort of like getting the right sort of environment for the employees. I suppose what would you say is that sort of like really important message there?
So when it comes to free zone companies, there's no nationals needed. Obviously, if
I suppose,
or looking for within your company. Exactly, yeah. There's never any harm in diversifying things, of course. When it comes to the mainland, there are different rules and regulations in terms of emiratisation. So I believe it's 1 in every 30, I think, needs to be an Emirati national. Which again, it's also one of the best things about being in Dubai. So many people are exposed to different cultures that they never thought they would be. So for me, it's great.
Okay, fantastic. And then sort of, I suppose when we think about UAE as that sort of global tech sort of innovation hub, in recent years, it's definitely sort of made massive strides, hasn't it, towards becoming that sort of global kind of hub for technology and innovation. Like you think about that AI and fintech.
It's exactly what I was about to say. It was the AI route. It's. I mean, it wasn't. I think it was 2 weeks ago that every UAE resident now has full access to the likes of ChatGPT for free. It's little things like that they're really driving forwards.
And I suppose even government is just sort of investing so much into those sort of future industries.
Even some of the medical centres are all AI now, and you don't actually see a physical person. It's crazy.
Wow, gosh, I mean, it's a sign of the times, isn't it? I suppose.
It is, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so sort of moving down, we've
Oh,
just sort of gone through. No, that's fine. Yeah,
oh,
moving
sorry.
down to the next one. No, it's fine.
Mhm.
Going through that. I think I've just got a little bit ahead of myself with the global tech and innovation hub.
Oh,
But
yes.
yeah. So, yeah, no. So, but it's clearly the strategic location, isn't it, for really scaling across those markets. And but if we start talking about that sort of residency and the visa options, I know you sort of talked about it previously, Harry, about sort of the visa side of things. But if 80% or more sort of talent are expats, that immigration piece is so important, isn't it?
Are you there?
Oh yes.
There we go. I lost you again.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, it's okay.
Um,
I didn't hear anything you said in the last, I'd say, 30 seconds.
Oh dear, sorry.
It's
Okay, so I
absolutely
would
fine.
just, no, it's fine. I was moving down to sort of residency and sort of visa
Oh, okay,
options.
perfect.
Yeah, because when we talked previously about so there's such a high percentage of talent being expats,
Yes.
immigration is just such a necessity to get right from day one. I've seen it so many times with clients, companies getting it so wrong from the outset, that
Hmm.
actually being able to ensure that that everything is in place as it should be from day one
Yeah,
is so essential. And of course, what
exactly.
comes hand in hand with kind of visa and immigration is that relocation side as well.
Yes,
um, and
absolutely.
making sure that we've got, that they think about the relocation package, think about the people, if they're coming with their families, and those sorts of things as well. So I'm assuming this is always hot topic when you
Yeah,
talk to your clients.
absolutely, exactly. And I'll just use a prime example. One of my clients recently, he set up the company. He came over by himself, got his residency visa all sorted, and then he's now coming back with his family. So because of that, we then had to get the likes of the marriage certificate attested and both of the children's birth certificates attested, which sort of adds 4 weeks onto any of the processes,
Wow.
because it has to go to whatever origin of country the client is from. So in this
Yeah.
case, my client was from the UK, so the documents had to go to the UK embassy. They then got flown over to Dubai, and they had to go to the UAE embassy and then MOFA, which is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, to be attested by both of them as well. So that when
Okay.
his family
Gosh.
now arrives,
Hmm.
they he can now sponsor his
You can now
family.
sponsor. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
Yeah. So it does add time to the process. And again, this is why the likes, the free zones are great. You can fly in and out, get things done, and fly back out.
Yes.
Um, but in the grand scheme of things, as a relocation, and if you were setting up the likes of a mainland company, it's certainly something that you need to consider. I would probably say before you arrive. I would
Yeah.
easily.
Yeah. I can. It's and actually sort of when I'm thinking about moving on to like those sort of common pitfalls, that all comes part of that planning, preparation,
Absolutely.
making sure that everything's in place, you understand the
Yeah.
timelines, and making sure that not only is it right for you, for the client, but also right
Mhm.
for the employees as well.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, of course. And that's one thing also I just wanted to quickly mention in terms of the children's sponsorships.
Yeah.
Um, they don't do medical tests, so they won't have any blood taken or an X-ray of the chest if they're below 16.
Okay.
But they do the biometrics for the policing records. So, it,
Yes.
yeah, and then if it's the father sponsoring, it's funnily enough all fine and dandy. If it's the mother sponsoring, they have to get a non-objection certificate from the father if the children are going to be on the mother's visa.
I see. Yeah. So, and again, all of those, that's, I'm imagining it's probably quite specific to a family in their scenario as well.
Absolutely,
It's probably no
absolutely.
one size fits all, I imagine.
Yeah, 100%, absolutely not. Every case is different. Every case.
Okay.
Um,
Perfect.
there's obviously, did we touch on the golden visas? So in terms of golden visas, obviously the golden visa is a 10-year residency. It's for you either invest in real estate that is valued of 2 million dirhams or above. The skilled talent is, again, normally it's nominated, is skilled talent, so you have to be nominated for that one. Or there is the salary route, which a lot of people do opt for. But for the salary route, you have to be an employee of the business.
Right. Yeah.
Again, designations are a huge thing in the UAE. So to be an employee, you can be a shareholder of a business and also an employee. You know, director status, for example, director, general manager. But you then have to show a salary of 30,000 dirhams, and you have to be within that one company for 18 months or above. So obviously it's easy if it's going to be your own company. You will obviously be there for hopefully longer than 18 months. So from there, if you are showing a consistent salary of the 30,000 dirham threshold, you can then apply for a golden visa.
Okay, that's really, really good, really helpful. And I think there's so much in that it will be brought to life, won't it, through various
Yeah,
different
absolutely,
conversations.
100%, absolutely.
So yes, so I know that we've obviously been through these sort of pitfalls as we've been going
Yeah,
through these slides, but you know, I
absolutely.
suppose choosing that wrong setup for the company, you
Yes,
know, free zone versus mainland, that's obviously always going to be a common pitfall, I imagine, and the
absolutely.
misunderstanding of tax and labour laws,
Yes,
and those continuous sort of regulatory changes and updates, you know, not being in line with what's happening and what's coming up.
yeah,
I can imagine are just like continuous pitfalls that you see on a regular basis.
100%.
And then, you know, thinking about that sort of the HR, payroll, and also all compliance, you know, not
Mm,
understanding what needs to be done, and then
yeah,
not making, you know, allowing your company from day one not be compliant. That's just such a huge mistake that can be
yeah,
easily avoided, can't it?
yeah. And
Um,
it's a huge setback if you don't do that.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So yeah, so I think this all sort of wraps up into that real kind of key takeaway of planning, preparation, thinking about
Absolutely.
it. So we've put together these like questions that we
Mm,
regularly get asked.
yeah.
So Harry, what is the most common mistake when setting up in the UAE for the first time? What do you see?
For me, it's somebody setting up a business in a free zone when it needs to be in the mainland. You know, the likes of real estate is the easiest example. So a real estate company, you know, it would then, if you were to take a free zone license, you would then only be able to conduct real estate activities within that free zone itself. So you are so restricted. In the
Yeah.
mainland, there's also with real estate, there is an approval called RERA, which is the Real Estate Regulatory Authority. Um, each different activity requires this approval. But obviously, when you're in the mainland, you can operate anywhere. You can still operate in the free zone. So it gives you zero restrictions. So, you know, it's a case of really knowing what business you want to conduct and how you want to conduct it and where you want to conduct it is the easiest mistake. You know, if you were conducting real estate outside of the country, of course I would say let's go for the free zone. But when
Yeah.
it comes to if you're going to do something like real estate within the UAE, it has to be a mainland company, realistically.
Okay, that's good. And then I suppose easiest visa option for key hires.
So there are three different categories of visa when it comes
Yeah.
to employees. All have different costings depending on the level of the designation, let's say. So, you know, there's the managers, then there's sort of the mid levels, and then there's the lower levels. So it completely depends on who you're looking to hire and what job they're doing. So I think there's 3,000 designations, something silly. So, you know, it can be complete. Honestly, it ranges from beekeeper to director. So,
Yeah.
it's very, very vast.
Yes, yeah, I can imagine. And then I know we've already sort of talked about sort of
Yeah.
technology, you know, and the innovation hubs, but what sectors are you really seeing that are significantly growing?
There's, you know, especially the one-man band type industries, you
Yeah,
know,
okay.
I would say consultants, a lot of consultants are moving over here. Um, Digital marketing companies are certainly relocating over here as well. And then there's the AI, obviously, that's the booming industry at the moment. Fintech, and then honestly, real estate. Real estate is huge
Yeah,
over here. You know,
yeah,
buildings are getting built everywhere. So, I mean,
yes,
I saw a stat the other day that 70,000 new apartments will be built in 2025. So
significant, isn't it?
it shows you the vast projects that are really going on here now.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting times.
It
Um,
is.
Okay, so sort of to summarize what we've sort of talked about today, the key takeaways really are, like we said, plan early, make sure there's a defined structure, understand the timelines, your, budget early as well, and clearly to make sure you know exactly what's coming ahead of you. To engage obviously in trusted partners like ourselves, for the setup, for advice, for that full compliance, and ensure that you are really focused on that kind of building that culturally aware sort of teams, and of course, as we touched on before, that sort of staying ahead of those changes, as we've already sort of talked about. There's so many changes that are happening, aren't there? That being
Absolutely.
aware of them and knowing when they're coming up is so important, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. So both from, for us, we can collectively work with companies, not just about that sort of consultancy piece and how to enter into the UAE and what's best for our clients and their sort of business and their growth journey, but also that full back office support, isn't it? It's that full compliance, entity setup, accounts and tax, payroll, HR, benefits, banking, sort of foreign exchange. So everything from a compliance perspective, we can take control of and be responsible for, so that they, for our clients, it's just about them focusing on the growth of their business, and we take care of everything else in the background.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Okay, so
Superb.
thank you.
Thank you.
Well, it's been brilliant. It's been brilliant. So if anyone would like to reach out to myself and Harry, you've got our email addresses there. We really appreciate you registering and dialing in to listen to this session, and looking forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Emma. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Really appreciate it.
All right.